Okay, we'll go ahead and begin. Welcome to Midwest Dairy's Understanding Growth Opportunities for Cheese webinar. I am Maureen Windish, and I am Midwest Dairy's Senior Manager of Insights and Analytics. As you may know, Midwest Dairy partners with a wide variety of premier market research firms. So today's webinar will be led by myself and Mike Mancini from Mintel. Together, Mike and I have over 25 years of tracking consumer behavior in the food landscape and supporting partners like you and unlocking growth opportunities. Mike is an account manager and self-proclaimed cheese aficionado at Mintel. After spending a decade in marketing, Mike joined the Mintel team in 2022 and oversees a wide range of clients within the dairy industry. Working alongside Mintel's team of category experts, Mike helps clients identify trends, innovation, and opportunities within the dairy industry. From a housekeeping perspective, I invite you to ask questions through the Q&A feature, and we'll address them at the end of the presentation. And after the webinar, we'll send you a link to the presentation as well as the recording. So let's get started. So for today, we'll be focusing on talking a little bit about the consumer mindset and what the consumer landscape mindset looks like concerning food in general. And then we will go into cheese trends at retail, specifically reviewing Circana's most recent trend data. And then we'll go into a forecast and outlook for cheese, and Mike will take over from there. And then we'll explore some recent product innovation and how that ties into the consumer trends. So taking a look at this first slide, the person here, the consumer, is juggling a lot of things when they're thinking of food. Not surprising, enjoyment is still very top of mind for consumers when they're deciding what to purchase. And taste is a huge driver of enjoyment. So taste would be a primary driver. Affordability more recently has been increasingly important, especially keeping in mind inflationary pressures that consumers are still feeling. And so we do expect that affordability will continue to play a very big role in consumer choices at the grocer and as well at food service establishments. Health and wellness is certainly on the mind of consumers, but maybe a little bit lower in priority given enjoyment and affordability that they're looking for. Convenience is also very important in the mind of consumer, and sustainability is maybe not top of mind, but definitely in the consideration set when making food choices, and could often be a deal breaker when making choices. Midwest Dairy does primary research, and this is a recent finding from our last review of our findings. So we went out and surveyed 1,000 consumers in the Midwest Dairy region, and we asked them about their love of dairy. And 88% of the consumers in our region said that they love dairy, and that was actually up 1 point in our wave from March. So certainly love of dairy is going to play in favor for our cheese trends that we're exploring today. 97% of households purchase cheese. And I often say, I don't know too many categories that have higher household penetration than cheese. Maybe toilet paper has a higher household penetration. But certainly we have a lot of households participating in the cheese category, which is fabulous news. And this has been pretty steady for probably decades. So looking at fast facts concerning the cheese consumer. So 69% of consumers are eating about the same amount of cheese. And in the most recent Circana data, volume sales are flat. So we know the majority of consumers say they're eating about the same amount of cheese. Certainly we have some consumers eating more and some consumers eating less for a variety of reasons, and we'll explore that here. But those two groups are canceling each other out, and our volume sales are virtually flat. Despite inflation, cheese is a non-negotiable for consumers. About 88% of consumers say that they need to have cheese. And if they have to cut back, they're going to be trading down to cheaper brands rather than moving away from the category overall. And then most consumers, 57%, say they're eating more cheese at home because they're trying to get more protein in their diets. So certainly protein is a key feature for cheese and something that we should be trying to communicate to consumers on pack whenever possible. 67% of US cheese consumers enjoy trying new flavors. So adding varieties to your portfolio is a really important thing in order to boost usage. Largely due to very popular recipes on social media, more people consumed cottage cheese and cream cheese. Perhaps you were one of them that have used these very popular recipes that have been circulating on social media. They are very interesting and do give consumers some great ideas about how to use cheese. Consumers look to cheddar for the broadest occasions. So consumers are using cheddar a lot throughout many different ways of using it in dishes and eating it alone. The most popular being with crackers. So 60% of consumers are consuming cheddar with crackers. So an opportunity exists to expand usage of cheddar cheese specifically in recipe development, just giving consumers more ideas and ways to use cheese throughout their day. And then 44% of consumers are interested in bold flavors. We're seeing especially a lot of activity with peppers and spicy profiles, and we'll take a look at that as well in the next few minutes. Consumers do find a lot of value beyond brand. So 45% say that they're mostly sticking to the same brand, but then that means the balance, the majority, 55%, actually switch up their brands on occasion. They also say 40%, I often upgrade to more premium cheese when there is a promotion or a sale. So certainly promoting cheese is a huge driver of trying new flavors and upgrading to premium varieties. 36% say variety packs are a good value, and that is a great way to introduce consumers to new types of cheese. 30% say I tend to buy premium cheeses for special occasions only, so tapping into those holidays, birthday occasions, graduations, and other events throughout the year certainly give consumers an opportunity to trade up to premium cheeses. 28% say that they're more likely to pay for cheeses from certain regions. So regionality, ethnicity certainly play a role in consuming more cheese. And then 27% say that they tend to go towards the lowest price option. So that's a pretty, large chunk of consumers, 27%. So certainly we have and are seeing consumers trading down to price for pricing purposes. So let's take a look at the retail sales trends. As I mentioned earlier, cheese volume growth, it has been flat according to Circana's most recent data. And natural cheese has been the driver of any growth that we're seeing. So that is the lion's share of the category. 85.1% of all sales are natural cheese sales, and that was up almost a point. And the declines in cheese are really coming from that processed cheese, down almost 2%. And then just as a point of comparison, those imitation cheeses as well as vegan cheeses are seeing pretty dramatic declines, especially imitation cheese almost down 11% and vegan cheese almost down 6%. So those alternative cheeses are not performing well more recently. From a fat perspective, regular full-fat cheeses drove growth. And these, again, lion's share of the category, 94.3% of all sales are regular cheese. But we are seeing some growth with fat-free cheese, although it only represents 1.5% of the category. And noticing pretty dramatic declines on low-fat cheese, as well as reduced fat cheese. And across these cheese segments, chunk, shredded, and string cheese drove growth. So we can see chunk had, from a volume change perspective, the largest volume change, followed by shredded cheese and string cheese. All of those three types growing the most dramatically. We do see some declines within sliced cheese that are pretty significant, obviously holding back the category from growing, and likely due to people deciding that they can slice their own cheese, perhaps. It is a premium price, and in the landscape of affordability, it's an easy swap out. And these cheese flavors, or types, I should say, there's a variety, many are growing here actually. Mozzarella, Parmesan, and queso growing the most. And so really regional cheeses, especially Italian and Mexican, seem to have a lot of play with consumers these days. From a flavor perspective, what we're looking at are all the cheese kind of grouped at a high level. You can see pepper had the most dramatic growth this past year, or this past year to date, as well as herb and vegetable, and then those fruit varieties. There's an awful lot of fruit varieties coming out, and Mike will show you some examples of those. Those that are holding back the categories the most are those meat and nut varieties, and perhaps those price points are more than the other varieties that are growing. Again, playing into that idea that consumers are trying to swap out in for more affordable options. And from here, I will let Mike take over and review the forecast and outlook for cheese.
Cool. Thanks, Maureen. So forecast and outlook. So markets have been all over the place in the last few years, right? Chaos in 2020 to 40-year highs in 2022. Inflation consistently on the rise. Things are shaping up now, but we're supposed to be heading towards a soft landing. But you know who's never sweated once during all this turmoil? And it's cheese. So cheese nearly reached 30 billion sales in 2022. So while it's true that high inflation was the main driver of dollar sales growth, low category attrition has proven cheese's staying power in consumer carts. So what this means is that once cheese enters people's lives and refrigerators, it pretty much stays there. Once a cheese consumer, always a cheese consumer. So as we wrap up 2023, we're expecting for the final numbers to showcase yet another strong performance for cheese, much of this due to cheese's nature of being versatile. It can be present at mealtime, be present at snack time. And this paired with flavor innovation, better for your applications, and just generally more casual consumption occasions should result in moderate sales growth all the way through to 2028. We'll see on the next slide here. All right, so here's a high-level breakdown of where cheese is now, where it'll be in the next 2 years, and where we expect it to be in 3 to 5 years. So now we'll continue to see strong dollar growth, prices are elevated, consumers are expanding their consumption ranges. Cheese is present in breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and cheese is present at also all the times in between. So it's becoming a snacking mainstay. Now, next, from 2024 to 2025, we do expect growth to slow down as inflation cools, but even so, consumers will still not get bored of cheese flavor innovation and its overall versatility. So younger consumers in particular are who we expect to lead the innovation charge here, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. But finally, from 2026 to 2028, you can continue to expect moderate growth. We're predicting that as snacking occasions and health perceptions trend towards the positive, so too will consumption for consumers both new and old. Now, you might have noticed Mintel's emphasis on cheese being present in all occasions, and that's because this is a really important contributor to the cheese market. And why is that? Well, in the next slide, what we found when we surveyed consumers about their cheese consumption is that more than half of those who have increased their cheese consumption have done so because they've added cheese to their snacks. So, in fact, in another survey, we also found that salty snacks that are cheese flavored are favored by over half of all survey recipients. So cheese's convenience is a massive benefit to the market, especially when we consider the amount of the workforce that is, in the next slide, we'll talk about working from home. So society's shift to hybrid work models has been excellent for the market, as cheese's portability allows consumers to have an option that can be consumed at home, on the commute, the office, everywhere in between. It's a quick, satiating option that serves as a great vehicle for getting protein into your diet. And this rise in consumption indicates that brands are kind of leaning into how their products can be flexible and functional across several occasions. So at Mintel's offices in Chicago, we actually have a fridge of snacks. There's consistently at least 4 different cheese options in there, many of which echo that, packed with protein sentiment on pack. So obviously, I'm the office cheese fridge's biggest fan. But in the next slide, we'll go over here. So casual occasions drive increase. So in a nutshell, cheese is versatile across occasions and need states. So it's a constant in snacks and meals. Even when food prices rose, cheese was still consistently on grocery lists and in fridges at home. Out of consumers whose cheese consumption increased over the past year, 57% responded that they were eating more cheese at home. Another fact of note is 41% of those consumers were adding variety to their cheese repertoires, meaning brands should take note. These consumers are adventurous in their willingness to try new options. So in the next slide here, so cheddar. Cheddar's an interesting case. Out of all varieties, there's one in particular worth noting, and it's cheddar. In this survey anyway, cheddar's versatility makes it extremely valuable in the eyes of consumers. So in our survey, we found that cheddar is enjoyed in more forms, functions, and occasions than other common varieties. So this versatility is huge for a consumer and great for brands. You know, the more uses your product has, the faster it disappears, the sooner it's back on the shopping list. So great note on cheddar there. In this next slide, Marie touched on the health points a little bit. So I did mention that Mintel fridge earlier. There's a reason why all of our office cheese options include some sort of functional benefit in the front of the package. And when we surveyed consumers who reportedly are eating less cheese than the previous year, the leading cause of this was due to the conception that cheese is unhealthy. So these health concerns overshadow price concerns significantly, 49% to 33%. The good news is that protein is a hot topic right now. Added protein is much sought after by consumers, and cheese is well positioned to be a champion of this protein trend. In the next slide, we'll go over millennials. So, speaking of cheese champions, that's how you can describe the millennial generation. Millennials are the most engaged cheese consumers with more experience and interest in cheese than other groups. So this is a huge opportunity to expand occasions and kind of, foster excitement with this group. Making pairing suggestions, showcasing how cheese can be used in recipes, educating them on how cheese can be a surprisingly simple addition to boost the outcome of recipe. These are all great ways to capitalize on this demographic that has a great working knowledge of the category, but could be in need of some inspiration beyond simply trying new varieties. That being said, we'll also touch on Gen Z here in the next slide. So millennials, they've been around the block when it comes to cheese. Gen Z is still promising for cheese brands. Gen Z has a high interest in trialing emerging varieties. So what we found is that young consumers appreciate, international and regional expansion, flavor and textual nuances and creative preparations, much of these that they find predictably via social media, but also dining out. This is what can help lesser known cheeses like cotija or paneer, which have increased by 22% and 5% respectively as an ingredient on menus from Q1 2020 to Q1 2023. The added benefits and getting into the conversation on social media. So for this next slide here, so single and multi-pack offerings don't have to be exclusive to cheese varietals. They can also satisfy consumer interest in bold flavors. So according to one of our tools, Mintel's Flavorscape AI, emerging flavors with high growth potential in cheese include flavors like chili pepper, caramelized onion, white truffle. So this is indicating that there's an interest in flavors with a bit of an edge. Brands can also reach a broad audience by enhancing familiar cheese types with interesting flavors like Maureen touched on, a fruity feta, or using a familiar flavor to make an emerging cheese more accessible, like a honey manchego. So not only that, but a trio of cheddar with varying spice levels could bring variety that can appeal across consumers. Consumers that could be in the same household or work, could appeal across occasions to change up sandwiches, snacks, and meal toppers. And then, so this is one that I was pretty excited about, cottage cheese. Many of you may have heard about cottage cheese's recent rise to prominence in social media. For those who haven't, go type, cottage cheese trend into Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube, or ask a Gen Z about it. You'll find thousands of posts about people obsessing over cottage cheese and sharing cottage cheese recipes, and many of which are due to its health benefits. With Circana data that Maureen and I received this morning, actually, cottage cheese volume growth was double-digit recently. 10.4% over 12 weeks, 11.6% over 4 weeks. This trend took off in spring 2023, and we're still seeing the effects of it as we're less than a month away from 2024. So what's interesting is that cottage cheese hasn't changed. It was always high in protein. It just took a TikTok trend for younger generations to kind of fully understand the convenience and health benefits, which they then broadcasted far and wide. But this means that other varieties can benefit from this too, capitalizing by joining the conversation, educating consumers on their own varieties' functional benefits. So paneer has been a good example of an emerging cheese type that's benefited from this trend. And there could be many others out there that can hop on and take advantage. So let's talk a little bit more about innovation within the space. But first, a visit from our juggling friend for a quick reminder of the drivers of purchase. So these are the areas that you'll generally see innovation around: health and wellness, affordability, enjoyment, sustainability, convenience. So unique flavors and serving suggestions. So what's going to continue to excite cheese consumers? Well, unique flavors and serving suggestions. Take this blueberry mojito Wensleydale cheese with blueberries and lime, which is the entire title. It's quite the mouthful, but it's part of a range of cocktail flavored cheeses. And it's exactly the kind of product that makes you stop in the aisle or stop in your TikTok scroll and say, that's interesting. Similarly, this paneer twist separates itself from the rest of the pack due to its unique versatility. It can be grilled, it can be fried, it can be eaten as a snack. And then this Big Moo bacon baked cheese, another mouthful. It's made with real bacon, and it's suggested to be prepared in a pan, in an oven, or over a grill. There's many different uses for this. One important note here: flavor innovation is going to help consumers feel inspired to buy cheese as an indulgent treat and a suitable snack. But keep in mind that popularity of cheese flavored snacks indicates that cheese as a standalone flavor is still a popular option. So remember how versatile cheddar was, and that's cheddar as a standalone flavor, not a blueberry mojito cheddar. One huge tip: emerging cheese types on menus are great indicators of what consumers are being exposed to when eating out. And these options can then translate into in-store products that are familiar, like Oaxacan cheese that has increased by 44% on ingredients and menus from Q1 2020 to Q1 2023. You can bet that people will walk away from those experiences, and if they notice, Oaxacan cheese on the aisles in the grocery store, they're going to be, since they've already been introduced to it, they've already tried it, they might be more likely to actually bring it home with them. So here are some products that prioritize messages about the taste and the experience of the cheese. So when we surveyed consumers about these products on appearance alone with our purchase intelligence tool, all three of these products were perceived as tasty by at least 73% of consumers, in part due to helpful messaging like creamy melt. For this next slide, here are some products that have kind of already jumped on to promoting their functional benefits. So Raw Farm Raw Cheddar advertises its true raw nature. It's free from gluten, provides raw probiotics that help with digestion. Then you've got Nancy's Organic Probiotic Cream Cheese, which advertises its probiotic nature. Again, it's free from thickeners, GMO, gluten-free. And then lastly, you have this vegan matzo shred. It's 100% vegan, it's plant-based, and although it's also established as being crafted by artisan cheesemakers. And probiotics also pops up here as well. So reminder that the number one reason why consumers were eating less cheese was due to pursuing healthier diets. These products really help to position cheese as a positive diet choice. And then, on the subject of trends, here's another trend that arose via social media from 2020 to 2022 era charcuterie boards. This Bella Rosa artisan crafted snack actually acknowledges the social media trend on the pack. And 45% of consumers surveyed respond that they likely or definitely would buy this product, which outperformed others in the subcategory. And then similarly, these two products over here, Good and Gather and Boar's Head, also outperformed the subcategory. This is the power of keeping your ear to the TikTok ground and jumping on trends. So low-fat natural cheese is a popular choice among U.S. consumers because they perceive it as both tasty and good value. However, retail price also plays a role in purchase decisions. So in the U.S., new low-fat natural cheese is generally cheaper than full, and globally, new low-fat cheese is also cheaper than full-fat cheese on average. So to help consumers navigate inflation, brands position low-fat cheese as affordable rather than just healthier. Now, the sustainability becoming more top of mind for brands and consumers alike. We expect to see on-pack messaging focusing on sustainable and ethical farming practices. Cheese brands in particular can highlight regenerative farming, which will put them in a good place to respond to challenges from consumers about their water footprint. And here we are. So in conclusion, there's three main things to take with you today. Cheese will remain to be a household staple. So even with climbing prices, consumers will not let go of their cheese. While some will trade down to more affordable formats, the category continues to see growth. 2, snacking helps extend occasions. So cheese proves to be a convenient option for consumers as they use it to fulfill snacking needs, amongst others. Portability, as well as the satiating flavor associated with cheese, makes it an easy option, whether as a better for you or an indulgent snack. And then lastly, versatility equals value. So the ability for cheese to work across meals and snacks, as well as at home and on the go, benefits the category as consumers have broad needs for their schedules. So showcasing how a single cheese purchase can fulfill multiple needs can connect with busy consumers. And with that being said, I'll hand it off to Maureen. Maureen, you might be on mute.
I was on mute. Thank you so much. So I don't see any Q&A questions. Feel free to put any questions in that Q&A, or you can come off the mic and ask live questions. But I do have a question for Mike. So with all the social media recipes that we're seeing and the viral nature of those recipes, do you see cheese continuing to play a role in social media, in that social media landscape?
So that's a very interesting question. So yeah, these viral recipes, they're not going to stop anytime soon. They really do have a knack for capturing attention, especially when the feature ingredient is something as popular and available as cheese. You take the baked feta pasta trend, for instance. It exploded on TikTok. It's racking up millions of views and inspiring, countless reviews and recreation videos and remixes. And it's inspired by the same principles. It's typically affordable ingredients, easy process, delicious taste. That's what they're going for in these recipes. And especially as we enter the season of indulging, we expect to see a lot more recipes like this pop up across the internet. And in turn, smart retailers will start to actually feature these ingredients prominently in stores. I was actually in London last week and saw a as seen on TikTok shelf at a grocery store. So they're not going anywhere anytime soon. Neither is cheese.
Great, thanks, Mike. We do have a question here. It says, with snacking on the mind, are we seeing that cool off? Are consumers switching from private label to branded now due to the flavors and innovation?
So that's something that,
yeah.
Oh,
go ahead,
sorry,
Mike.
Maureen. Cool.
Oh, go ahead.
So that's something that I would really want to look back at the data. That specific question I haven't looked into just yet, but it is an interesting thought, right? So that's something that I can get back to you, Maureen, with some more data on. I want to provide an actual, accurate answer there.
And from a private label perspective, there have been a lot of launches in private label, and we know that the quality of private label just continues to expand, more premium options, more flavors. Definitely that will likely continue in the future. Private label continues to gain share from branded product. Is the dual merchandising in the deli versus dairy case recommended? Dual merchandising. I would assume that having 2 locations is better than one, but I don't have specific data on one versus the other. Mike, have you heard anything in this area?
I haven't. It's something that I would want to explore more.
Okay.
It's a good question.
Any other questions? Thank you for your questions. All right, well, that concludes. And as I mentioned, you will get an email with a link to the recording and presentation. If you have any questions, additional questions in the meantime, you can feel free to reach out to us directly. So here's my contact information, and here's Mike's contact information. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Maureen.